Okay. Oh, yep, no problem. Yep. And it's all lowercase. It's got to be all lowercase or it won't work. Okay, so the grammar work started this summer, and the way that you will be able to access it is through that link, but I don't know that if I've referenced, I'm sure I must have, but we have a Ning that we're going to live in for, and I think I've encouraged your participation in that Ning, but we have a grammar group called Grammar That Transfers. This work was done, me partnering with the Muskegon ISD and actually I should say it this way, the Muskegon ISD consultant, Aaron Brown, the West Shore Educational Service Agency, the WSESA, Jen Orton, and then Amy Oak, who is now a teacher consultant. She retired. She was the Muskegon educational consultant, and she's retired. The three of them have been doing grammar work for years, and they've been trying to bring grammar to life and not let it be the drill and kill grammar that's out there, and trying to bring it to life, trying to make it a part, especially of these workshop units. And so they've done a lot of research around this idea of grammar that transfers. So how are we teaching grammar that's going to actually transfer into student writing? So as this work is being worked on and completed, it's going to be made available here in this Ning. So you can go to the Ning and join this Grammar That Transfers group, and it will get you right here. So I'll show you in a second a sample of the work that you can get to through the 6th grade, and then it will get there. But at the bottom here is all of the research and the resources that have been referenced or used in the instruction in that work. So what happened in the Grammar That Transfers work? So we met this past summer. It was late August, right before school started, and we had a group of about 30 to 40 folks, again, from across primarily southwest Michigan. A few from Kent, a few from Muskegon, a few from Ottawa, a few from Mason Lake, and that's West Shore. So we got together and we did a lot of professional development around this concept of grammar. So what we broke grammar down into was this idea of something called a grammar calendar, something called a grammar glossary, and then a mini lesson template to use around the grammar. So what the grammar calendar does is the grammar calendar is actually going to set up a scope and sequence of how you would introduce grammar throughout the course of the year. So if you click on the grade level, and I only have 6th grade up because it's a sample, you will actually get the grammar calendar. The uniqueness of the grammar calendar, because we're doing it in the likeness of the MESA work, is we've taken the names of the MESA units and put them in the headings of the columns. Then the rows are the stages in that writing process. So for the generating of the ideas, writing in the notebook, that's this first phase of writing, and that happens naturally in each of the different units. But as you're doing that, this is the grammar that the students would take into consideration. Then during the drafting phase of writing, and there are lessons obviously within the MESA units that speak most to that, and then there's the revision stage of writing. So this scopes out the units by the phases of writing, and that's consistent across all the grade levels. So what they did then was they took not all of the grammar components from the Common Core, but the ones that were the best fit and the most logically needed for kids to have mastered. They've created then mini lessons and further spelled that information out. So what I'm going to do is come back to that, but there's a reason why they've taken different pieces of these grammar standards and put them in this calendar, and I'll come back to that in a second. But I also want to show you then, so that's grammar calendar. For grammar? It's for grammar. For grammar. Yep. It's aligned to the writing units because grammar naturally fits in with writing. Yep. Yeah, so this is a calendar. So if I took you to the website, you know how it's got all the pretty units down here. You click on it, it goes to that bigger piece. So this is that variation of that, but just around grammar. Because you know that's one thing that's not necessarily embedded in the MESA units. There's not a lot of grammar in there. If any is more referenced. So they also then, you've got the calendar, now you've got a glossary. So what they did then to help build the capacity of the folks doing the the training, but then also for those that are going to use the resources, they went through and they broke down all the standard and the language around that standard so that it made sense. Because you might be able to read demonstrating command of the convention of grammar, so you're going to ensure that pronouns are in the proper case. So you may not understand some aspect of that. That's a bad example. That one's pretty easy to process. But if there were certain words in there you were unsure of or unclear, they broke that down. So the key word here might be a pronoun. Here's a definition of a pronoun. Here are examples of that, and here are resources where you can go and get more information. It helps with building background knowledge. But more importantly, it creates a common base of understanding, right? So those that are using this grammar work are going to all have a common understanding of the language and how that language was learned and how it's being utilized then in the mini lessons. So this grammar glossary was created. In all honesty, I think the grammar glossaries had a good head start already, but these teachers went through and audited them and broke them down for every standard. So this is broken down for every standard, so this is a good unwrapping tool to use. If you want to dig into the meaning of a standard, you might read it and go, like antecedent. Antecedent? This will go in, break it down, give you examples. Some you might even be able to use with kids. I saw one with Schoolhouse Rock. You might want to use that. You probably already have it, but anyway. So you see it breaks down the different, and the grammar standards are the language standards. So those are the standards that are broken down. All right. So I'll go back now to the calendar so you understand. And here's kind of that, there's a disclaimer down below here that speaks to the fact that it doesn't necessarily include a mini lesson for every single standard. It's going to hit the ones that fit most logically in the writing process. So then what we said was, well, we know that there are these standards that speak to these concepts and we know where the units fit. Let's talk about this progression. What logically makes sense? What would you introduce to kids first? And maybe it's not necessarily about like what's easiest for them to understand, but what fits maybe best with that particular writing unit. Okay? And they want it to build upon itself where it makes sense. So if you're in that launch unit, that writer's notebook unit, what they're saying is that during the drafting stage, so when kids start actually elaborating on their ideas originally, you want to go back and review sentence types, capitalizations, and end punctuation. And they're referencing that those are mini lessons you can go back and find in 5th grade. So you could go back to 5th grade, find this language, click on it, it would take you to that mini lesson. And it would be a suggested mini lesson that you could use with students on these particular aspects. You can't go there right now if you wanted to because this work is it's being developed, and it's just about to go into draft. So it'll be out for pilot, I should say, is what I'm trying to say. So as soon as that goes out officially, I will be sure to send it out to this group, and then you guys can play with the pilot units now that you're getting kind of the skinny behind it here from me. So then as the kids go on further, you're going to get into the stage in that first unit where kids are going back and doing revisions in their writing. They're going back and looking and making that piece. And so it's logical then, oh, did she take out my link? Where's my link? Maybe it's lower. Oh, I have to find that link. Maybe they took it out. Where'd she go? So I had a unit. Oh, there it is. Okay. So then what they did is they said, okay, so in the revision, it makes sense then to focus on this particular standard, all right, or standards. And so there's going to be a mini lesson developed for the pronoun, the proper case, the pronoun, the antecedent, and this ambiguous, vague pronouns. So there'll be a mini lesson for each of these that you could possibly use during the revision stage of students in this particular unit, okay? So then you might evolve into your second unit, and the idea is that you want these skills to be taught to kids for them to become familiar with them. So kind of like the signposts, they're using them on their own. So you want them to start using them earlier in the writing process so you're not always coming to revision and then hitting this, right? You want kids to start taking more things into consideration earlier in the process. So it scaffolds it to say, review the lesson if needed around pronoun antecedent, but they should be considering that during this drafting phase. And also introduce this concept of intensive number during the drafting phase of that second unit, because there was nothing in the generating of ideas. So then we get down into the revision piece. You are introducing 2 new lessons, and then you'll see then that you go back then when you get into the generating of ideas, you already are taking these certain aspects into mind. So it kind of scaffolds it up so kids then are just automatically keeping these different grammar things in mind as they're doing throughout the entire writing process, not just always coming back to it in the revision stage, right? And that way it allows you to introduce new concepts along the way and revisit, and it kind of gives you a flow and a sequence. Does that seem pretty logical, pretty straightforward? Any questions about how it's put together between like the calendar and the glossary and how that works? Okay. So then, once we get these out in more finalized form, they will become hyperlinked. So here's one around revisiting the parenthesis, comma, and dash. So this is around parentheses, commas, and dashes. If I click on it, this is then the mini lesson, and you're going to see it's following the similar structure that you see in the MESA units. So they'll give you the overarching piece, the standard addressed, the big idea, background information to consider, an additional resource, but then a connection. So here's your teaching point. Writers, we have been, or the build into the teaching point, I should say. And then you're going to see the teach component, and then the active engagement component, and then the link. And so it's going to have those 4 pieces to kind of set up the mini lesson. Now the work that's happening right now is teachers are generating mini lessons around the identified units that you saw on the calendar. So they're generating these lessons in the meantime. They're piloting them, making edits as necessary. Amy Oak is kind of chairing the work, so she's going through and kind of reviewing and editing the units themselves, and they're trying to get them as common and as uniform as they can, like the MESA units are. And then they'll have this whole set of grammar work that'll be out there for you to pilot and review. So it'll be out there and ready for you to go. So any questions about that? The piloting is imminent. I think it was actually supposed to be late January, early February, and it's just still not quite complete, but they don't want to send it out there broken and undone. So if I do share it with, when I do share it with you, there will be some very straightforward ways for you to provide feedback, and they really would like that feedback because they're going to take that in consideration. They'll have a final version of the units available next fall. So this website, my Grammar That Transfers group, these units should all be active and linkable, assuming we get it all finalized. There will be at least large portions of it ready when you get ready to come back in the fall. And you'll have your grammar work ready and ready to go. Any questions about that? So I've got some copies of some grammar units here. I'm going to get them out to you. And